Hello and welcome back to Uncovered, where I give you a rapid-fire rundown of the latest titles added to Xbox Game Pass that I won't be covering in First 15. As a reminder, this isn't a ranking or review, I'm just telling you what's new. First, we've got Close to the Sun, which is basically BioShock without the action. It's an adventure game set in the 1800s where you play as a journalist searching for her sister on a ship designed by Nikola Tesla for the world's greatest scientific minds. It was developed by Storm in a Teacup, and while it's generally praised for its atmosphere and gorgeous setting, its linear progression, simple puzzles, and lack of combat or any conflict beyond a few chase sequences lands it more in the walking sim category for some. So if you want something that looks great and has a decent story with voice acting, you may want to check it out. Just don't expect a full-on rapture. Next, we've got Hell Let Loose from Team 17. It's a tactical first-person shooter set in World War II where you compete in squad-based 50 versus 50 matches. It's gained a lot of popularity since its initial release in 2019 for its tactical difficulty, combining the typical objective of securing points with managing supplies. It's got 2 game modes, a range of vehicles and artillery, character progression, and new weapons and maps are added periodically. The maps are of real locations they recreated using satellite data. You can build defenses to fortify your positions, you get to play as your choice of 14 roles, and the focus is on realism and teamwork. So if you're into more arcadey, twitch-shooty, lone wolf KDR fests, Hell Let Loose may not be for you, but if you prefer hardcore shooters where strategy is key, you can give the game a try right now. Next is Assassin's Creed Valhalla from Ubisoft, which is of course the open-world Viking entry into their more RPG-leaning games in the series. Some love it for the setting, some hate it for the grind. As someone who hasn't played the most recent AC titles due to the massive time sink, I can't speak to either of those, but if you like the style of Odyssey, you may find something to love in Valhalla. Next, we have Figment Journey into the Mind from Bedtime Digital, which is a musical puzzle adventure game where you battle the nightmares plaguing the mind. It's a relatively family-friendly game with easy combat and colorful, surreal environments, but the music is the highlight. Bosses sing entire songs, and you'll either love that about it or not. Either way, a lot of charm and care went into it, so you might want to check Figment out, especially if you have kids in your life who may enjoy it. Next up is A Little to the Left, a cozy puzzle game where you organize, sort, and stack. It was published by Secret Mode and developed by Max Inferno, and has a few neat features that games of this genre don't usually have, like unique puzzles delivered daily, multiple solutions for more freedom, and the ability to skip. With over 100 satisfying logic puzzles, it's a great game if you want something casual and calming to get you through the day, so if you're into that, why not check it out today? Next is We Happy Few, a game that didn't quite live up to the expectations of those who were looking forward to it, including me. But it's an action-adventure game set in an alternate version of 1960s England, where you fight your way through a dystopia obsessed with joy. It was published by Gearbox and developed by Compulsion Games, who made Contrast, a much shorter experience I really enjoyed and played here on the channel. Now, despite its mixed reception, the tone and aesthetic of We Happy Few, coupled with the environment, intriguing characters, and story, might be enough for you to really enjoy it, keeping in mind that even those who like it agree that it starts to drag. Now, like everything on this list, it's really up to you if you want to try it, and the good thing is that if you have Game Pass, it won't cost you a thing. Up next, we've got the Resident Evil 2 remake from Capcom, and this is the Standard Edition. Now, I won't spend a lot of time on games I'm sure most people watching my videos already know about, so this is just a heads up that it's available. The same goes for the equally popular remake of Resident Evil 3, but one thing X ain't gonna give to you is Play Anywhere support, meaning that you can only play Resident Evil 3 on Xbox. The PC version isn't available through Game Pass. Next, we've got Played Up, which is a restaurant management game that combines the elements of a sim with elements of co-op kitchen insanity a la Overcooked, which you can enjoy with up to 4 players. It was published by Yogscast and developed by It's Happening, and while the graphics aren't much to write home about, there's a lot to enjoy about the gameplay. You can build your own restaurant from scratch, including choosing dishes and designing your kitchen, unlocking new content and franchises through progression. It has roguelike components, and restaurant experiences are procedurally generated with their own custom and conditions. Its reception has been great all around, so if you're into these kinds of games, which I definitely am, you can hop on in and get cooking today. Moving on, we've got Turnip Boy Robs a Bank from Snoozy Kazoo. It's a quirky, cute roguelite focusing more on the fun of adventure than on difficulty like something like Hotline Miami. Now, I've never played a Turnip Boy game, but I know a lot of people love them for their humor and exploration, which some players argue is lost a bit on this sequel compared to the first game because it leans more into timed bullet hell action than story. So if you love the first game, you may still love this one despite it being a functional departure from the first, and if you never played the first game, then you can discover this one with fresh eyes. Speaking of roguelites, up next is Go Mecha Ball, a twin-stick shooter mixed with pinball physics. It was published by Super Rare Originals and developed by Whale Peak Games, and the most refreshing thing about it is the controls, allowing you to walk, roll, bounce, and shoot your way through levels. There are 4 worlds with unique enemies and 24 weapons at your disposal, and with over 20 abilities and 50 plus upgrades for your mech, which you can choose from 4 distinct types, each run will feel like something new. It's the kind of game that's satisfying to play because it's polished, visually pleasing, and controls really well, so if you like twin-stick shooters and want something with a more arcadey aesthetic, give Go Mecha Ball a shot. Next, we've got Phantom Abyss, published by one of my holy trinity, Devolver Digital, and developed by what I pronounce as Team YB, but I have no clue if that's how it's said. It's an asynchronous multiplayer game where you explore deadly procedurally generated temples to retrieve artifacts. You can follow the ghosts of previous players to see how they succeeded or failed, unlock more floors, new abilities, and buffs. And the most interesting mechanic, I think, is that a temple can be claimed and removed from the game forever once you conquer it, or it can be shared with friends so they can make their own attempts. This is one of those games that may be hit or miss because while it's fun for some players, it wears thin quickly for others and can feel pretty bare bones in general. Thankfully, like everything else I'm talking about, it's included with Game Pass, so you don't have to spend any money to decide for yourself. You can just dive in and check it out right now. Next up is Brotato, a top-down arena shooter from Blobfish, where you're a gun-toting potato blasting through alien hordes. Runs are relatively short, with waves lasting 20 seconds to a little over a minute. There are hundreds of items and weapons to choose from. You can wield up to 6 weapons at a time and choose to have them auto-fire, and you gain experience to access even more. I love games like these, so I have no complaints I can think of, and many players report it running well even on Steam Deck. So if you want to lose yourself in a hail of Spudfire, why not give Brotato a fry? Next is Persona 3 Reload from Sega and Atlus, the Standard Edition. And given that Persona 3 is so beloved an RPG with so much to it and has been revamped before, I'd encourage you to watch a video that dives into this version in more detail than I can go into, because I haven't played Reload yet and I don't remember the original. So all I know is that, like with other remakes, some things were added and some were taken away. I believe there's more voice acting in this version, and you can now spend time with your teammates to strengthen your synergy in combat, but it's missing the ability to play as Kotone and still doesn't include the answer epilogue. So if you're a fan of the original and a stickler for what Reload does with it, definitely read more about it elsewhere. Otherwise, it's still an incredibly well-reviewed game from a fantastic franchise, so if you enjoy stylish RPGs in general, you can't go wrong jumping into this one. Next up is Anucard, published by Freedom Games and developed by Stellar No. It's kind of a fantasy RPG dungeon crawler, and what little attention it's gotten has been a mixed bag. The pixel art and music are definite highlights across the board, while the gameplay is just okay, even to those who like the game, with feedback on the writing and pacing being worse. Again, even from those who like it. Playtime seems to average around the 10-hour mark, though, so it won't be a huge time sink if you're interested in checking it out, which you should if it looks like your cup of tea, since it's a bit hard to describe what it's like, which is why I'm being vague. And while most people who watch these videos have Game Pass, if you don't, but you're still interested in it, it's on sale for a massive discount on Steam right now until February 29th. Up next is Train Sim World 4. It's a train simulator, folks. You like trains? You want to simulate driving different models on different routes in different parts of the world? There you go. Now, I will say that I did jump into the previous game here on First 15, and while it was definitely fun learning how the trains work and zipping along at various times of day under beautifully rendered weather conditions through vastly different regions, the one thing I remember is there being so many trains and routes you had to pay for, making the game feel more constrained than maybe it should? But that's coming from someone who isn't a regular player of the series. Regardless, Train Sim World 4 appears to be more of the same, which begs the question, if you have 3, should you bother getting 4? And I'm not the person to answer that for you. You can answer it for yourself by jumping into it on Game Pass. Now we're getting into the games I'll always lump together in these lists because I don't play them. I haven't touched a sports game since the early 2010s, I think, and I haven't played a racing game since one of the last Forzas, though I still enjoy those. So all I've got for you are the general details, which may be all you need for these annual releases, given that they don't tend to change much from one to the next anyway, which is one of the reasons I stopped playing them. Starting with Formula 1 2023 from Codemasters and EA, which is available through EA Play. That means you need Game Pass Ultimate to get it. I did a breakdown of the Game Pass tiers here on the channel, by the way, if you want to check that out. So this version has the latest updates from 2023 as far as cars and driver lineups, vast improvements in handling, a new chapter in the Breaking Point story mode, a new hub for seasonal content and progression, crossplay. Basically, if you like Formula 1, it's just more speedy. Then we've got Madden NFL 2024 with some changes and enhancements specific to next-gen consoles, like increased realism to player movements and body definition, improved AI, skill-based passing with new animations, an update to the Field Sense system, and new Superstar game modes not available on Xbox One, just like the Face of the franchise and the Yard aren't available on Series X and S. Now, having said all of that, Madden's reception has been pretty terrible, with the complaints I've heard most being about performance issues and the Ultimate Team mode. Since I'm not playing it, I'll refer you to literally anyone else to give you more insight into just how poorly the game plays and how angry longtime fans of the series are at EA. So I'd say buyer beware, but if you have access to EA Play, you don't have to buy Madden anyway, in which case, just beware. Next is Super Mega Baseball 4 by Metalhead Software, also available through EA Play. It's more arcadey in its presentation, while still retaining some elements similar to the show. And the word on the grapevine is that it's functionally superior to SMB3, but with worse presentation and graphics and sound design. Now, the game has a lot of customization and interesting systems like the new Shuffle Draft, which lets you repeatedly redraft your roster, pulling from the game's base players, legends like Babe Ruth, or custom characters. I think of it like a re-roll on cards or abilities where each roll may cost you one of the ideal players if you pass and they don't come up again. But there is strategy to it, so I'd recommend trying it out to understand how it works and how team chemistry factors into the game. Beyond that, the game's got over 200 baseball pros, 6 new stadiums, and they've added cross-gen crossplay. Just keep in mind that the standard edition included with Game Pass doesn't have the additional 3 stadiums you also get in the Ballpark edition. Finally, we have Palworld from Pocket Pair, which I saved for last because it blew up so much that I don't feel like I need to explain it. The literal hundreds of thousands of glowing reviews across platforms, and the fact that Nintendo seemed to throw a bit of shade at it with their comment about protecting their IP should tell you all that you need to know. Lovingly dubbed Pokemon with Guns, it's so much more than that. It's an open-world survival game with farming, crafting, building, and yes, creature collecting, with the freedom to choose your playstyle. You can battle poachers, mount your pals to sail, ride, and fly across the world, or use their abilities to help build up your structures, or do the farming, making them more than battling companions. Treat them well to keep them alive, or eat them to save yourself. It's all up to you. Now, apart from the general world, there are dungeons to explore. You can breed your pals with a genetic system that passes traits down from the parents, poach rare pals from sanctuaries if you're fine with the risks, and as far as multiplayer goes, you can play online co-op with up to 4 people, or up to 32 players on a dedicated server. Battling and trading pals is included. So with all of that out of the way, despite its explosive entry into the gaming scene, Palworld is still in early access, so they have a lot of ideas and improvements on the roadmap, including PvP and increasing the number of players on the same server. So I recommend following them to keep tabs on patches and updates. And unlike the previously listed sports games, the only reason I haven't jumped into Palworld more yet is because I'm terrified of how much time I'm going to spend on it. Now, like I said at the start, these videos are just announcing what was added to Game Pass. They're not a review of each game, so I only mention details and opinions for more context. And while I know which games are coming to the library before they do, because I keep up with the news, I like to list them after they've been added so you don't have to worry about dates. If I mention it here, it's available now. Plus, it allows me to give new games some time to get enough meaningful feedback that I can share. I'll post a link to every game in the box so you can learn more about them. Let me know if you've been looking forward to anything here, or if you've already been playing one of these games and have something to say about in the comments that others may want to know. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you back here soon with more Uncovered.